Hello, my name is John Furman. I am a lawyer, been licensed to practice law in the state of Alabama since 1982. During that time, I have almost exclusively handled criminal law, both as a criminal defense lawyer and as a prosecutor for the local district attorney's office. Driving a vehicle with an expired license plate, with taillights out, with too loud a muffler, with too dark a tint, is likely to get you stopped. When you are stopped by a police officer or a cop, normally you stay in the vehicle. The officer will approach. He'll ask for your driver's license and your registration, your insurance papers. He has a right to ask for those. The theory behind that is that driving on the roads is a privilege and that you have to be licensed and insured to drive on the roads. If you do have that paperwork and there's nothing else there, chances are you'll get away with a ticket. On the other hand, if the police officer has suspicion that you, and as they often do, that you may have drugs or a weapon in the car, what he's going to do is ask you to step out of the vehicle. If you refuse to step out of the vehicle, typically what will happen is the encounter will turn ugly very quickly. The police officer will probably call for backup, and there are going to end up being 2 or 3 squad cars there within 5 to 10 minutes. If the officer asks you to get out of the vehicle, you should oblige. Get out of the vehicle. The officer has the right to do what is called a Terry pad, named after a Supreme Court case involving a defendant named Terry. The police officer may pat you down to determine if you have any weapons on you. That's for the officer. It's called for the officer's safety, and that's completely allowable. The police officer also has the right to reach into the vehicle and search the immediate area within which the driver of the vehicle, even though you're no longer in the vehicle, now that you're out of the vehicle, he has the right to search the interior of the vehicle, any place that the driver could reach, to search for a weapon. The idea being that officer safety is paramount, and if there's a weapon, then the person that's been stopped might be able to get it and then cause the situation to escalate. So those are the rights of the police officer. Now, you have the right, and from my experience on both sides as a defense lawyer and as a prosecutor, expressing your rights in a polite manner, in a manner that shows that you know what your rights are, but that you're being polite and inquisitive and wanting to be helpful, typically that goes a long way towards minimizing your exposure. You may even get away with a warning. Police officers are people just like anybody else. Most of them are just decent guys working, and women working, trying to make a living. There are a few bad apples. There are a few people that are cops because they like lording their authority over people. They like pushing people around. They have a chip on their shoulder. Police officers like that typically become fairly well known within the legal community by cops, defense lawyers, prosecutors, judges. And if you run into one of these bad cops, then you're not going to help yourself by escalating the situation. Now, under the Fourth Amendment, the right, the fourth search and seizure, that is the limit on what they have the right to search. They have the right to pat your person down for a weapon. Theoretically, if they feel something that might be a bag of some sort of dope, but it's obviously not a weapon, they are not allowed to reach into your pocket and try to find out what that is. That doesn't really happen very often. Most of the time, if they pat you down and you have a weapon or drugs or anything like that, they will say they felt something hard, they thought it might be a weapon, and they can recover it. It's going to end up being your word against the police officers in court, which is where you hopefully don't want to end up. If you are found to have drugs or firearms or any other type of illegal substance or contraband in your vehicle or on your person, this is where the Fifth Amendment would kick in. Police officer is going to start asking you questions. 90% of criminal cases that make it to court, the main part of the evidence in the case is the statement that the arrested person, now the defendant, makes, thinking that he can explain away the situation. Number one rule for you is do not make any statements. Do not make any statements. You should very firmly and politely state, under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, I know I do not have to make a statement. I want a lawyer. If you already have a lawyer, you can tell them who your lawyer's name is. On the back of my business cards, I give it to my clients. I tell them to keep it behind their driver's license. It says, I am represented by my attorney, John Furman. I do not consent to a search of my person, automobile, aircraft, boat, or my residence. And that usually will, once you invoke your right to an attorney, that should end the actual interaction verbally that you will have with that officer. At that point, if you do not make a statement, you invoke your Fifth Amendment rights, either the officer has a case, he thinks, and you're probably going to get arrested anyway, or he's going to let you go because he doesn't have enough evidence to hold you. 90% of the time, if you start talking and trying to explain, you're going to give that officer the ammunition he needs to build a case against you. They are trained for that type of interrogation and that type of stop. You are not. You're not going to come out on the top end of an argument with a police officer at that point. Remain silent, always. If you think it's important to know your constitutional rights and important for others to know theirs, please like this video, subscribe or share with your friends. You can also go to my website. On my website, you can get a copy of my business card and my phone number. I'll usually answer my phone. It's important. As I told you earlier, I give my clients my card and ask them to put it behind their driver's license, and if they're ever stopped, to pull it out and read the back of the card to the officer. It says, I am represented by my attorney, John Furman. I do not wish to make a statement. Questions should be addressed to my attorney. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle, person, residence, or vessel. I wish to speak to my attorney immediately. You would not believe how many cases have not been made against clients of mine because they followed this simple rule. Again, firm, knowledgeable, and polite.